Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Howdy. Love hearing that on a Sunday night. This is the Georgia Show on DawgsHQ's YouTube channel. I'm Wes Blankenship, Jake Roos, Jake Rowe, Palmer Tom's in the house. Guys, we're going to start off with the most relevant topic of the weekend, applicable to both Jakes. The Under Armour Atlanta event, which was in Carrollton, Georgia. I don't know why they're hating on Carrollton like that. Pretty fine town. But what'd you learn at the Under Armour Atlanta event in Carrollton, guys?
The first camp I've covered in, best I can tell, like 8 years. And had a good time, man. It was good seeing some old faces. And, I mean, just a loaded camp, man. I mean, I was constantly looking like, who was that D lineman? Who was that D lineman? There were guys there that were ranked inside the top 100 that I didn't even know their name. Now, listen, recruiting's not the game anymore. So I get that, but it was impressive, man. There was a really good group there, and as Roos has already reported, on top of it, and Chad Simmons as well, Georgia was the topic du jour for a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I'm freaking
that, Jake.
I'm freaking bushed, man. I'll say that, to be honest with you. I am so tired, man. I was really debating whether or not I was going to be on the show tonight because I am whipped after today. It was a long day, man, but it was very productive. And like Jake said, Georgia, a hot topic for a number of guys. And I'm talking about, 2024, 2025, 2026 guys, all talking dogs. And really, I think one of the things that was a standout to me was because of how consistent it was among the guys that I spoke to, was the feeling amongst a lot of these recruits that Georgia's mentality is the difference maker. And that's kind of the unique factor for the Bulldogs. All these guys said, look, Georgia, super successful, putting guys in the league, but there's no complacency. There's no idea of, setting back on their laurels. They're not happy about where they've been. They want to go further, and they want to continue to push that. Mike Matthews was one guy that stood out with me for sure. 5-star receiver, one of the best in the nation. I think he's the number 2 receiver in the consensus, if I'm not mistaken. But we got producer Palmer over there. I can see him typing away already. But Mike Matthews said that exact thing. I mean, basically that it was, Georgia's mindset is what was so different about them and made them so unique as compared to other teams. And I think that that's really saying something, that not only have they imparted that on their guys, but they've also done that in such a way that it's spilling over to the recruits.
And I want to add something to that. Having not done this for a while and having not held a recorder in front of a recruit's face and, talk to them and watch them talk about Georgia, it's almost odd to hear them say the same things about Georgia that I used to hear kids say about Alabama.
It's very interesting that you say that, because I kind of knew where you might be going with that when you started talking about it. But yeah, it's a lot's changed in 8 years, and it's the same thing you used to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like,
what are some of the things that you hear?
Well, you used to hear you talk to the guys, hey, Alabama's Alabama. They win championships. You hear the same thing about Georgia. And it's weird to hear that. I think I've read it. I think I've read it in some stories here and there. Not on Reddit, but I've read it. And, there you see it, but it's just different when you see a kid kind of make that like, hey, like it's undeniable. They left no doubt, like Kirby said. To hear those guys just kind of be like, hey, Georgia's Georgia, man. They just win championships. They got it rolling over there. This, Coach Kirby Smart, or Coach Kirby or whatever they call him. I mean, it was pretty cool to see that today. And there were some freak show talents there. I mean, there were to me, the number one talent that I saw in attendance. Now, I did duck out a little bit before the skill guys got really cranked up. But that Sanders kid out of Chris Beals High School from Charlotte is probably one of the I can't remember his first name's
David.
David. Yeah, I knew
Sanders.
it was a biblical name. King David Sanders.
Daniel.
I mean, he sounds like he runs a law firm.
Hezekiah, Jedediah.
Hey man, Wes, dude, this cat, unicorn.
I really liked what you had to say, which is that this kid might not know how to play football yet, but he's impressive as hell already.
Yeah, he's just beating everybody. I don't even know if he knows how to play football yet.
Number two prospect in the class of 2025. Georgia, a huge player there right now as it sits, primarily because of that work.
What's his name?
Chris Field. David Sanders.
David Sanders Jr. Yep.
Sounds like a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, kind of. And he's on the small side in terms of weight. He's about 6'6", but he carries about 250, 260. Yeah, I mean at most. Yeah, I think they technically got him weighed in today at 250. And I'm not normally big on those types of tackles. Like I've seen over the years them take shots at guys who just couldn't bust 285. They're not made of the same stuff I'm made of. I guarantee you. If I wanted to get above 285 at 5'10", I could get there in like a month, but they can't get there, sadly. But this cat right here, and also I was also just incredibly impressed. He's got like 3 younger sisters that were there with him today. His whole family was there. They seem like the nicest, most awesome people in the world. But that cat right there, he's you'll see that face right there looking a lot older, maybe with some hair on it, in about 5-6 years, 4 or 5 years. Holding up a jersey with Roger Goodell or whoever the NFL commissioner is.
Was it him? I can't remember who you tweeted about, but you said that the hype about South Carolina was overblown. Was that Sanders or somebody else?
That was it's a guy that South Carolina leads for in the RPM. Jordan Ross. Yeah, South Carolina, I believe, leads for Jordan Ross in the RPM. Looks like that's going to be a Georgia-Tennessee battle for right now, with Alabama kind of climbing into it, with him being from very close to there. I think that late offer might be hurting Alabama a little bit there. Maybe like it hurt Georgia in the beginning a little bit with Justin Green from over at Mountain View, who was also a beast to deal with today. So learned a lot about Georgia's recruiting efforts in this coming class, and also learned a lot about Carrollton High School and that setup over there.
Son, they got it going on. That's a mini college over there.
Yeah.
I mean, there are JUCO guys that are suffering in places that look way worse than that, for sure.
100.
They're going to try to go to Carrollton High School for their JUCO year and rehab their career, and then get picked up by a Power 5 school. Is that allowed?
No, I bet when Ed Dudley was there, he would have taken it. I don't know who the head coach at Carrollton is now, but
it's amazing to
Joey
hear.
King.
Oh, is it Joey King?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Oh, Joey. Okay.
Yeah.
Just moving further west.
King Joseph.
Well, it's amazing to hear you guys say that about Georgia guys and recruits saying what they're saying about Bama. I just, I hear that, and I hear a bunch of players who are now not just hearing Kirby Smart's pitch, which has always been strong. He's always put together great classes, but now he has the hardware to back it up. And I can almost imagine Kirby saying, hey, it's just been a matter of time, guys. I knew this was what this program could look like. And that just makes it all that easier to sell it.
Yeah. And it's all in place. That's the thing. And the facilities are right. The culture is right. The coaching staff is right. He's got it all sort of working in his favor when it comes to the timing of how this all happened. There's continuity on the staff. There's an established brand with Georgia. I mean, they won these titles, but simultaneously all of this stuff was happening, to build toward it. And so right now it's all coming to a head. The success is there, but also every other part that kids are looking for: the draft stock, the development, the ability to get into a world-class weight room, nutrition. It's across the board. And so they have so much to sell, even aside from the fact that they're back-to-back national champions.
Yeah, I want the comment by Matthew C here. I don't disagree about the culture maker. But let's not forget that Scott Cochran wasn't around last year. No offense. I mean, he had some things to take care of his own. I think it's more than a guy. I think it's more than it was started way before Cochran. It started with Scott Sinclair. It started with that 2017. It started with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel coming back is what it started with. I mean, that proved a lot to a lot of people. That let everybody know that a number 3 recruiting class wasn't just a flash in the pan, and Georgia just kind of kept stacking classes. And, sometimes you need some breaks to get where you want to go. Georgia didn't get those in like 18 and 19. Obviously didn't get those in 20. And, a little luck along the way. I keep saying it, but, tried to run Stead off and he wouldn't go anywhere. That was luck.
Ro, I've heard from people that were on both of the 27 and 18 teams and staffs, and that Chubb, Michelle, Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter press conference where they all came into that old press conference room where we used to meet in their football pants and shirts and announced that they were going to come back. So many people point back to that day as being the day where they really started to believe, okay, this thing isn't just going to be what this 2016 season was. There's bigger potential here.
And if you had sat in that ho-hum room as many times as I had at that point, but felt the way it felt when those guys sat there and proclaimed that they were coming back, each one of them individually coming up, you knew that it was something, a little bit more special. And by the way, you got a little DawgsHQ swag.
You're looking like Bill Belichick over there, man.
Yeah, cut those sleeves off.
This hoodie's a little baggy on me. I need to wash
Show off that anchor tattoo you have on your left shoulder.
No tats for me, brother.
DawgsHQ tag coming soon. If you don't want to commit to a tattoo, you can commit to more apparel. That's almost as good as Jake Rowe's hoodie. No, it's just as good, if not better. Over at breakingt.com. Y'all know we always have the link in the show description, but all the national championship stuff, I scroll through this. If you're watching, if you're only listening, you're just missing a lot of greatness on the screen right now. But let's not forget about where Breaking T started this season with the Brock Bowers gear, the Stetson Bennett stuff, the Christopher Smith with the turnover Savage pads. There's some really great stuff on page 2 as well that I don't want y'all to miss out on if you need a new Georgia t-shirt, which, as Palmer Toms can tell you, you definitely do.
Yeah,
you're the segue king, Wes. There's nobody better in the game.
I'm just sad that Breaking T.
Nick Cellini's pretty good.
I'm just sad that Breaking T never got a chance to team up with Zamir White and do like a lightning bolts in his eyes and him holding a lightning bolt with some like flowing blonde locks and
riding a horse.
Yeah, something insane. Because
it's never too late.
Yeah, because I am a Zamir White stan, big fan of that kid. So,
well, Daniel Jeremiah, also a big fan of another future professional dog, Jalen Carter. And Palmer Toms, you wrote about what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about Jalen Carter and the prospects of some other dogs going into this NFL draft class. It sounds like Jalen Carter is finally getting a lot of the mock draft acclaim that he deserves.
Yeah, I wrote about what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about Jalen and Stetson and Kenny McIntosh today. We were on a conference call with him for, I kid you not, 2.5 hours on
You
Friday.
were on it the whole time?
I was kind of curious how long he would go. I probably wasn't paying attention the entire
Palmer
time.
had scratch on it.
Hey, let's just get this out of the way. That man's dad's a pastor. Okay.
And Palmer's just out here grinding, dude. 2.5 hours just listening to Daniel Jeremiah opine.
Look, it was, I was finishing up a golf round. I turned it on when I was finishing up a golf round. I turned it off because he was done. He had answered questions from 63, 65, something crazy. The transcript is 61 pages long. So I feel sorry for whoever had to transcribe.
Just publish that thing. I mean, at this point, just turn it into a book.
Yeah, I feel sorry for whoever transcribed that, but God bless them. Because
it was probably Chat GPT. Don't worry about it.
Probably. But yeah, wrote 2 stories from what Jeremiah had to say. Couple more coming tomorrow. He talked a lot about the dogs because there are a lot of dogs to talk about. Yes, Connor is correct here. I actually got called on as I was hopping into the shower. And
what are you doing, man?
You're playing golf. You're showering. Did you find time to wash the car while you were doing this? Or
DawgsHQ is a lifestyle for Palmer Toms.
It was 2 hours and 19 minutes or whatever it was. But yeah, so he talked about Jalen Carter and was very high on him. I mean, there's plenty of reason to be. Obviously there's a lot of talk about the Bears possibly trading out of the number 1 overall pick. That he discussed, what that would take for different teams to trade into that spot. But he said, and if that trade is happening, it's probably happening for a quarterback. But he said, I think Jalen Carter is the best player in the draft. And added that he thinks Will Anderson is the second best player. He's incredibly high on Tyree Wilson. That's not a knock against the quarterbacks, but these defensive players that are at the top of this board are incredible. And he said, he thinks, he said he loved Quinnen Williams coming out. And I want to say Quinnen went 3rd overall in 20, so. 3rd overall to the Jets in 19, if I'm not mistaken. He said, I loved him. That's the kind of player that they're getting. I think I've seen him say that either him or someone else has said they like him more than they liked Quinnen Williams, which says a lot. He pointed to the Bruce Feldman article, which I can't remember if we mentioned on here or not, but not from within the On3 network, but I do encourage you all to go check that one out. Great story. He's shares
Bruce
a story
writes a lot about Jalen Carter's athleticism in that, which if you're not like keen on the intel that Jalen Carter had coming out of high school, I mean, he's an absolute freak, right? He can dunk the basketball
and the punter at Apopka, and as well as a basketball star. He was
played in the band. And he did it all right.
And I linked to a specific dunk that was mentioned in the Feldman article. Bruce also talks about Jalen off the field as well. Some great stories there. But just an absolutely incredible player. Absolutely.
Yeah, but his character's terrible. It's just questionable.
Yeah.
Questionable character.
Listen, I will say this, and I'm not defending Todd McShay when I say this because he just keep your mouth shut. Okay. Let some things play out sometimes. But Jalen Carter did start that whole riffraff before the Missouri game. It was a nothing burger. Nothing came out of it. Not a punch was thrown. A little bit of a pushing back and forth, jawing back and forth type thing. That was 100% on Jalen Carter, but it's not a character concern. So, I mean, he's overcome all that, and that's awesome. But Jalen Carter, we were talking about that cat a minute ago that is a sophomore right now. We didn't know if he knows how to play ball yet, David Sanders. Jalen Carter didn't know how to play football as a sophomore either. And Jalen Carter's best football is ahead of him is what's crazy. I mean, this is Ndamukong Suh, Warren Sapp type of ceiling, gold jacket type stuff. He's special. And if Georgia can somehow get him drafted number 1 overall, I mean, good God, the feathers in Trey Scott's cap. I mean, that's insane.
Oh yeah. Well, and
speaking of letting things play out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and talking about those Georgia assistants, Jeremiah says that he's good buddies with Stacy Searles, and he asked Stacy about Jalen, and Stacy said when he comes to practice and doesn't want to get blocked, he's not getting blocked. It's simple as that. So Jeremiah talked about Jalen, talked about Stetson and Kenny McIntosh, which I wrote about today. What
do you say about Stetson?
Well, I mean, he just kind of pointed to what he's heard is day 3 type stuff, but all it takes is one team to fall in love with him. And the different people, different scouts and GMs have said, hey, if Bryce Young can go number 1 overall, and the biggest knock on Stetson is size. Why can't Stetson Bennett go in the 3rd or 4th round? Why can't he be a little higher than people want, to see him right now? So, he said he sees him as a day 3 pick, but there's absolutely the possibility that he could be late day 2, early day 3, as opposed to, flirting with undrafted status, versus Kenny McIntosh, who we talked about, incredibly deep running back class that this has. He said 13 was his number of top 3 round running backs that he had graded out.
Wow.
That can help Kenny, that can hurt Kenny, because teams can wait a little bit longer to take a running back because they feel comfortable getting several guys. But at the same time, once somebody jumps and says we're taking a running back, everybody's going to want to get their guy, get one of the guys that they feel comfortable with. So I could see. I think I wrote on a mock draft projection that had him somewhere in the 60s to the Ravens, which is even more interesting now with Monk in there. That they've got running back concerns.
Well, that's what RG3 thinks, that the Ravens are going to draft Stetson.
Yeah. And I know we talked about that on here and all that, but lot of high praise for Georgia. Check back over to DawgsHQ tomorrow. I'll have some more stuff specific to Darnell Washington and the tight ends, another deep position group, and then a couple of the defensive guys, Nolan Smith, Chris Smith, Keely Ringo. Jeremiah is really high on Nolan Smith, has him as a first rounder, does not have Keely in that first round, and kind of explains a little bit why.
Well, I think we've heard a lot of those reasons why, but it will be compelling to hear it from a draft expert and not, some angry guy on Twitter. So I guess it'll be somewhat refreshing.
It's going to be really buzzworthy. I feel like when Keely Ringo goes and runs like a 4.36 at the combine, and people just lose their minds over that. I don't necessarily think he's a first-round cornerback either. I do think he's a corner early in his career, probably transitions to safety later on.
Cam Chancellor.
But, concerning that Kenny McIntosh thing, it's kind of like Palmer Tom's at $2 beer night over at the Bud Hut. Once you have enough and you break the seal, it just kind of all goes. Somebody starts to get a run on running backs at 53, 54. Kenny McIntosh flies off the board pretty quick.
That's also right.
Something I mentioned to Roos when we were talking today, Kenny McIntosh, one of the most underrated seasons in the history of Georgia running backs. Set a running back record for receiving yards in a season. 1,300 total yards, almost 100 total yards a game. Not many guys do that, man. Not many guys do it. Kenny had a big year.
Tomahawk Dog, fitting, like, of all the people that could say this, Tomahawk Dog is the most appropriate. We know the Falcons won't draft him, and I don't know who he's even referring to, whether it's Kenny or Jalen or Stetson Bennett, but it could be any of those dogs.
There is nothing stood the test of time like the Falcons not drafting a Georgia player that can help them right away.
I am really hopeful that Todd McShay was paid by the Falcons to say Jalen Carter had character issues. I really want him to be the one. I want him to be the one that lands.
They're finally coming around.
I hope not, Roos, because Atlanta sports has a problem with getting caught up in little scandals like that, like the Braves and John Chapalella and stuff like that. So
I don't hate the guy.
If it happened and worked out, it'll get unearthed.
Yeah, I don't hate the guy, and I don't want to see him have to suffer as a Falcon, which he inevitably would. But I would love to see him be a Falcon. There's no question.
Yeah, we may need to look into this. If this NFL draft class passes, and I know they took Schaefer and Fitzpatrick.
When they could have had Jamari.
They could have had Sawyer. Yeah. And like you said, it's not just drafting a dog. It's like drafting an impactful player.
Yeah.
That, you could have had Todd Gurley. You could have had – who's another one that they, just blatantly missed out on?
I mean, Hines Ward's maybe the all-time glaringest one because they took Jamie German.
So painful.
Yeah.
Jamie German. I don't even know who the hell that is.
Yeah, I barely do. Here's the thing, though. I don't know that they've ever, I can't remember them ever taking one in the top 3 rounds, like a guy that that you come in and you expect, all right, this dude's going to play for you right away. Did they draft a King Dent?
They did.
They might have.
and I think that was a 4th rounder, if I'm not mistaken. He actually
sounds
played
right.
for him.
Yeah.
Akeem Dent might be the greatest Bulldog Falcon of the last 20 years. Think about that.
Yeah, Shockley had an opportunity, but he got hurt. Didn't they
And
draft
he was
Terrence
a 7th
Edwards?
round guy.
We had Vic Beasley over Todd.
Yeah.
Dude was out of the league in like 4 years, man.
All right,
Gurley was hurt, but yeah, think of how many Todd Gurley.
But they seemed justified because he had a huge season.
So,
but then after that, it was crickets.
Off of a quick Control F on Wikipedia, the Falcons
Producer
have
Palmer.
drafted 13 Georgia players in the history of the
program. Who are they?
Ever.
Who are they?
Ever. They've been around since 66.
DJ Shockley, Justin Schaefer.
All right. So 68, Ray Jeffords. They took a kicker in 77, Alan Leavitt. Scott Warner in 81. Troy Sadowski, tight end in 89.
Producer Palmer needs theme music.
Mitch Davis in 94, a linebacker. Shockley in 2006. Martrez Milner, a tight end in 2007. Thomas Brown, 2008. Akeem Dent, 2011. And then Schaefer and Fitzpatrick.
Say 11 again. I was talking.
Akeem Dent.
Akeem Dent.
So they went from 2011 to 2022 without drafting a Georgia player.
God, I forgot about Martrez going there.
Yeah,
elected there.
That's wild, man.
Excuse me, that's actually 11 because 2 of those Control F guys are notable undrafted players.
Oh, nice.
Bob Etter, also a kicker, and Gary Moss in 1987.
No relation to Randy. As far as we
know.
Or
Llewellyn.
God, burn the whole franchise down.
All right. We're gonna investigate this draft class. If this happens again, we are going to investigate it. I promise. Let's wrap up really quick. We have to talk about it for a couple minutes here, Palmer. What happened to Mike White's basketball dogs yesterday against Mizzou, man?
The second half.
Say what?
The second half.
The second half happened. They didn't play well in the second half, and they've run into 3 straight NCAA tournament teams here. Yes, they've lost those by an average of, I think, 31 points. This one wasn't a 30-point loss, but the last 2 were to Arkansas and Alabama. Those 2 were on the road. This one was at home. So I think, and you could tell it with Mike, that made it a little bit more disappointing that they played like this at home. But I think what's important to remind yourself here is to keep some perspective on what Mike and this program have done, where Georgia basketball is now as opposed to a year ago. That was really bad. This is not good.
Not as bad.
It's not good, but they are significantly better. They are going to finish the regular season with a winning record. If they can win one more game, whether that's against Florida Tuesday night, at South Carolina, who they already beat on Saturday, or in Nashville against whoever they play there, probably next Wednesday in one of those opening round games. If they can win one more, they guarantee themselves a winning record on the season. And if I'm not mistaken, Tom Crean had 1 winning record in his time here in 4 years. That was against an incredibly friendly COVID schedule. Georgia is in a much better place. They've got to hit the transfer portal well. They're going to have some spots open. They need to recruit 2024 well, because I don't think that they're going to get any more guys for 2023. At least freshmen. So you go get those guys out of the transfer portal. They really need to recruit 2024 well, but they are in a much better place. And Mike is excited about being here. He, an Ole Miss grad, a former player there. He was asked about that job opening up, and seemed very adamant that he was going to be at Georgia. And the $9 million buyout probably has something to do with that.
All right,
No,
really quick.
I would not say that they're still on the NIT bubble, Matthew C.
Okay,
think
I was about
that's
to
too far gone.
pop that up. All right, Jake
Unless they can go on a run in Nashville, I think that's too far gone.
Yeah, they probably need to win their next 4 in a row.
Yeah.
They need to win the 2 regular season.
I'm not counting them out.
Tournament to get on that NIT
And
bubble.
even then, I don't know that it's possible because the quality of their wins has not been great. And 3 of those wins, Florida's okay win, but South Carolina and whoever they would play in that first game in Nashville, probably not a win that's getting you into the NIT. So they probably need to win 4 or 5 in a row to get there.
Okay, I'm not counting them out.
Or they win
White's
the
Dogs
whole,
can do it.
or they win the whole thing and go to the NCAA tournament.
I hope we can have some good NIT talk if they make it. There's nothing like talking the NIT, buddy.
We'll have
Y'all let me know
show.
when you got that one scheduled.
We'll have an NIT show.
I think I'll have a dog emergency or something. I don't even have.
We'll do
one.
a remote from David Barrow Elementary School cafeteria. All right, Jake Rose got to hop off here. Let's hear your dog stock report before you go, man.
Hey, man, I'm just going to, it's what I talked about earlier in recruiting. I know sometimes we get a little redundant with these, and it's hard not to, but Georgia recruiting, man, machine, absolute machine. Hearing that today, it was a little surreal, even as a Georgia graduate, as somebody who, listen, I used to call these kids and listen to them on the phone, and they would be like, hey, man, I got to listen to Alabama. Alabama's Alabama. Or I got to listen to Clemson. Clemson's Clemson, right? And honestly, I was out of the game before Clemson stopped Clemsoning. But it's crazy. It's Georgia's got a lot of ammunition. They're not going to get everybody, but they're going to get a lot of the guys that they really want and the guys they act quickly on. Still going to get beaten from time to time, but this thing's stacking up to be around for a while. And still, I believe you got to have some breaks to win it all. But ultimately, if you keep stacking classes like that, you can build a dynasty. And, I think Georgia needs to get one out of the next 2 or 3 years to be considered a dynasty. And I think it will because of the way it's recruiting.
Good
25
stuff.
class stacking up already too.
Yeah, that's 25. I think the 25 class may be like an all-timer.
There's
so many great kids in that already.
I think 24 is going to be the one. I'm going to do my stock up today on Sokovie White, Georgia wide receiver commit for the class of 2024. Had a chance to speak with him today. First off, he was just decked out in Georgia pajama pants, which looked comfortable as hell, but also quite fashionable with his white hoodie. But had a great time talking to Sokovie and just asking him, where things were in his process. And he said, look, I'm taking one official visit. That's the only visit I'm going to take. And it's going to be to the University of Georgia. And was really just impressed to hear that in this NIL era, to hear it from kids to say, look, I'm shutting things down. We heard that from Nye Carr also. He recently tweeted that. Out. Those guys, you don't hear that just a ton. And I think that they recognize not only the value of a commitment, but also, that Georgia's Georgia right now, and they can go out and recruit over you, or they can take another guy to fill that spot if you decide that you want to keep things a little too open. I think that it was really impressive to hear it from Sokovie. He's very serious about his commitment. He's working on Georgia's behalf. He's recruiting other wide receivers in this class, so he's clearly not scared of competition. And Georgia has a big plan for him in terms of he said they want to use him as the toy in their offense. They want to put him out wide. They want him carrying the ball. They want him doing a little bit of everything. And I think he can be an exciting offensive weapon. So Sokovie White, stock up on him, and certainly his mindset going into his recruitment process.
Dylan Brooks says Sokovie can scoot, son.
There ain't no doubt. Go watch that film on him. I'm telling you.
Cartersville Purple Hurricane.
Yeah, Cass. He's a Cass general, my friend.
Cass.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
He can get it done, but he gets it done on both sides of the ball too. And we talked about it. Sokovie, not the biggest guy on earth, and there's very few kids I've ever met who would legitimately tell you their height. He said, "Look, I'm 5'9.5". That's what the weight room's for, son." And said I can muscle dudes out. I can get out there. I can bang. So
can't make you any taller, but it can make you stand out.
Ain't no doubt. He's
going pound for pound.
Yeah.
Cass Cass fans, please forgive me. I
They're
misread.
going to take that one hard, Wes.
I know, man. I know some people from Cartersville, and they don't want to be confused with Cass, and Cass doesn't want it either. I do want to point out one thing, though. I just misread his On3 profile when I saw the Cartersville. Yeah. But, dude, he might not have the height, but he has the stash of like a 45-year-old minister. Yeah, that is impressive stuff. All right. Thank you, Jake Roos. I'll hop on next, Palmer. I was in Miami for a wedding over the weekend, and my Uber driver, I'll say stock up as a result of this ride, stock up on Kirby Smart's brand. I mean, we've spoken about it with recruits in regard to them earlier on in the show, but all I had to say when my Uber driver and I started to talk about college football, as my Uber rides typically tend to go if the driver is willing and ready. The guy asked me if I'm a Georgia fan, and I said, yeah, I went to Georgia, graduated. I'm a dog. And all he said was, Kirby, man. And that says a lot. It's not just the brand of Georgia now, and Kirby Smart will never admit it, and he won't make this about him at all. But people in Miami, the most competitive hotbed for talent that you can probably try to get talent from, concentrated in such a small area, it's already recognizable that it's not just Georgia, it's about Kirby. So stock up on Kirby Smart, because that to me spoke volumes in such a short exchange.
Well, my stock up has nothing to do with Georgia football's brand, but Georgia Golf's brand and the Georgia brand in general. Chris Kirk, a winner on the PGA Tour again after almost 8 years, last one in 2015. Chris has a really great story. Would encourage anybody paying attention that's a golf fan, Georgia fan, just a fan of people in general. Chris has a really good story there. Stepped away from golf for a while in 2019 because of issues with alcohol and depression, and has since come back and been very vocal about his struggles, and was able to come away with a win today in a playoff at the Honda Classic. Was leading coming into the final round, almost blew it there on the final hole, sent one right into the water, but ended up getting get an opportunity in the playoff. Ended up behind a tree there, had to lay up and hit a shot from just about 100 yards out, right into a tap-in birdie distance. And so really great story there. Georgia Golf on a hot streak here at the Honda Classic, 2 straight winners there. Sepp Straka won there last year. Dogs have won 4 out of the last 10, 3 out of the last 5. The win does qualify him for the Masters, which is huge for these Georgia guys.
It's a big win. Get one of those PGA Tour wins.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, there's 6 guys that are currently qualified: Brian Harmon, Russell Henley, Chris Kirk, Kevin Kisner, Sepp Straka, Bubba Watson. 3 others are well within, 3 or 4 others are well within striking distance of getting there: Harris English, Keith Mitchell, Davis Thompson, Brennan Todd. They've got to qualify either by winning a tournament or securing themselves a spot in the top 50 of the world golf rankings. So 40th tournament win from a player that played for Chris Hack at Georgia. And it moves him into second among those guys. Bubba Watson has 12. This was Kirk's 5th. So
wow.
Stock up on Georgia Golf. And Wes, you wrote about it last week. I think it was the Full Swing documentary.
Yeah, y'all check that out. Yeah, Chad Munn, working to get him on as a guest coming up here soon when his schedule allows it. Maybe around the Masters time, it might make sense, but we'll see what we can do about that. But if you're watching Full Swing on Netflix, the executive producer is a Grady grad from Georgia, and it's some really impressive work, and it's no doubt growing the game of golf, a huge cliche, but I think it's working. Some pretty great stories in that. And the story of Chris Kirk is amazing. Really mixed bag of results for guys with 2 first names tonight, as Chris Kirk gets the win and Jake Paul with a terrible defeat in the boxing ring.
And the guy that Chris beat in the playoff, Eric Cole.
There you go. Brendan Todd.
Stock up on Palmer giving love to the non-football sports also.
And stock down on my internet connection, apparently. So that's something that we got to get fixed. I'll put a hand up, acknowledge it. People, I am aware of it. We're working to get it fixed.
Somebody asked earlier in the show who was the guest on Bark After Dark tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah.
All I'm going to say is tune in, because you do not want to miss tomorrow night's. We're having a crossover episode of epic proportions. This is going to be an exciting one. I've been looking forward to this one since we came up with the whole concept. So make sure to tune in 9:00 tomorrow night, Monday night, because it's going to be a really, really fun show, I think.
Connor Riley, maybe?
Producer Palmer doesn't even know, so.
I don't know.
It won't be my neighbors. Somebody suggested perhaps my neighbors would be the guest. I hope they don't. I hope they don't rear their head again.
Well, I guess y'all got to tune in. Bark After Dark, 9 p.m. every Monday. The Georgia Show, 8:30 p.m. every Sunday and Wednesday. So y'all tune in. We got a lot of programming for you on this YouTube channel and over at DawgsHQ.com for free and behind the paywall for premium DawgsHQ members. That deal's still going on, $29.99 through October 31st. You got to join in on that party. Thanks for watching tonight on this party. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a great week. Peace.